Are there any sounds in Chinese that are actually the same as a sound in English? If your answer is yes, think of such a sound right now. This video will teach you to more authentically produce that sound in Chinese because, in fact, the answer to the original question is no. All sounds in Chinese are in some way unique from any sound in English. So we'll go through and analyze sounds in Chinese, starting with the pinyin initials in groups of similar sounds and then moving on to the pinyin finals. And in each case, we'll look at the specific differences between the Chinese sounds and their most close English counterpart. Let's jump right in. The first category of sounds are the bilabial consonants, bo, po, mo, fo. Let's start with the Chinese B, bo. Compared to its English counterpart, it sounds almost the same, but there is a crucial difference, which is that in Chinese, the lips are curled inward and the mouth is tighter. So if I say the English word boat, my lips are pretty relaxed, but in the Chinese bo, I can feel more pressure between my lips when producing that sound. The next sound is po, and compared with its English counterpart P, we once again see the same difference. The mouth shape is the same, and once again, the Chinese has tighter lips and a tighter mouth when producing this sound. Next is mo versus the English M, and these two sound almost indistinguishable. But once again, mo being in the sound group with the other two sounds we just discussed shares the same mouth shape as those two, and so it does have the same difference with its English counterpart. As you practice these sounds together in this group, naturally you will acquire the authentic way of pronouncing them. Finally, in this sound group, we have the Chinese F, fo. And this one's a little bit different because it's produced by using the teeth in conjunction with the lips to create the sound. But nevertheless, it shares the same difference as the previous sounds did with their English counterparts, which is that in Chinese there's more pressure and tightness, whereas in English there's more relaxation. So if I say the word fall in English, my lips feel pretty relaxed, but fa creates a lot of pressure between the teeth and the lips when producing that sound. So the conclusion about this sound group is that in English we tend to have a more relaxed and open mouth, but in Chinese we have tight lips and a tight mouth when making these sounds. The second category of sounds we will discuss is the one that consists of de, te, ne, and le. And this is a particularly tricky one because I think these are the sounds that tend to be taught as exactly the same as their English counterparts, when in fact they're significantly different. So for the English sounds D, T, and N, we can analyze the production of these sounds by saying the sentence, "What do you want?" And when I say this, I feel the tip of my tongue contacting the roof of my mouth, in particular the alveolar ridge, to produce these sounds. But in Chinese, the corresponding sounds are actually produced by pressing the tongue against the back of the upper teeth, de, te, ne, which produces an audibly different sound if you can listen carefully enough for it. Now for L versus the Chinese le, the difference is almost imperceptible. In English, when I say the sound L, my tongue contacts the point of intersection between my teeth and my gums. But in Chinese, once again, the tongue is in the same position as the other three sounds in this group, pressing against the back of the upper teeth. So there's an extremely subtle difference. It's not tremendous, and as you practice the rest of the sounds in this group, the authentic pronunciation of L will naturally follow suit. The third sound group we will discuss is G, K, and H, or the Chinese ge, ke, and he. These sounds are often produced by beginners by simply utilizing the English variants. But the difference is that in Chinese, ge, ke, and he are produced further back in the mouth than in English. So if I say the English word go, I can feel the sound being produced right about the middle of my mouth. But in Chinese, go is produced slightly further back in the mouth. So there is a difference, and if you want authentic pronunciation, simply copying and pasting the English G, K, and H will not do. The next sound group is z, z, z. Firstly, we have z, which is very similar to the English ds, for example, in the word ads. But the key distinction is that in Chinese, there's more pressure of the tongue on the back of the teeth, and there's more pressure of airflow through the teeth as you make that sound z. Next, we have ts, which is similar to the ts in English, for example, in the word bats, but once again with the same distinction. In Chinese, you should really feel the airflow being pressed through the teeth when you say ts. And finally, in this sound group, we have s, or in Chinese, s, which can be thought of as the same as the English s, but in fact it follows the same pattern as the other two. When we say s in Chinese, there should be a strong pressure of the tongue on the back of the teeth. So in this sound group, we once again have a set of sounds that are quite similar to sounds in English, but with a common thread of more pressure in the Chinese variants. Next, we have a very interesting sound group, zhi, chi, shi, and rhi. Now you may be wondering, why is the Chinese R included with these other sounds? But your first mistake would be to think of it as an R at all. So we will tackle that question, but first, let's discuss the other three sounds in this group. Zhi is almost the same as the English DG like in fudge, and chi and shi are almost the same as their English CH and SH counterparts as well. However, the difference in all three cases is that in Chinese, the mouth is more rounded and the lips pulled forward, while in English it's more relaxed. So in English, I say the word chat with relaxed lips, but in Chinese, chi with rounded and pulled forward lips. But now, what about the Chinese rhi? So this is completely different from the English R. Forget everything about English R's when you want to practice this sound, and instead, learn it as part of this zhi, chi, shi sound group. So first, start with the sound zhi, and then cut off the very onset of that sound. And what's left is rhi. So in this way, you can get the authentic Chinese rhi sound. Once again, zhi, rhi. The final category are my favorite sounds in Chinese, ji, qi, and xi. As for our original question, the answer should be obvious. These are sounds that don't exist whatsoever in English, and so we can forget everything we know about J's, Q's, and X's for the purposes of learning how to produce these sounds. The sounds ji, qi, xi are produced with a similar tongue position as the Chinese zi, ci, and s, so we can use this as our starting point. For example, let's start with the sound zi, but then pull the corners of the mouth tight outwards and force a burst of air through the teeth to make the sound ji. The sounds qi and xi can be produced in similar ways, starting from ts and s respectively. The crucial elements here are tight lips, a tight mouth, and a forceful pressure of the tongue on the back of the teeth. Hopefully with some practice, these mechanics can help you to get the authentic sounding ji, qi, and xi sounds. So we've already covered all the pinyin initial consonants, but there are two more letters that appear as the first letter of pinyin syllables, Y and W. Now these are more of placeholder letters. They're not real sounds themselves, but they're placed at the beginning of final-only syllables, and I presume the idea was to make more intuitive or simple spellings for those syllables. For example, what's spelled as yi in pinyin could actually just be written as the letter I, yi, and what's spelled as ya actually means ia, ya. There are similar ideas behind the spellings yo, wo, wan, wen, and a whole host of other sounds. Anyway, that being covered, it's time to jump straight into pinyin finals. The final in pinyin, sometimes referred to as the rhyming part of the syllable, is what's remaining after you remove the initial consonant from a full syllable. In Chinese finals, the sound production always travels from the front to the back of the mouth, specifically during the vowel sound. In very simple sounds like ah, the effect may be relatively subtle compared to a more complicated sound like yong, but either way, the effect is there. This means we can answer the question, are there any Chinese vowel sounds that are exactly the same as English vowel sounds in one fell swoop? No, because English vowels don't have this front to back travel that Chinese vowels do. So we can compare a very simple word that we might think would be pronounced the same in English and Chinese. Let's take the English word way versus the Chinese wei. In English, when I say the word wei, I can feel the sound being produced in this front middle part of my mouth and staying there for the entire word. But in Chinese, wei, while the sound starts in roughly the same place, by the end of the word, it's traveled all the way to the back of my mouth. And you can repeat this comparison with any vowel sound you want in Chinese and a corresponding English sound, and you'll notice that in all cases, the pattern is the same. There are no English vowel sounds that are exactly the same as any Chinese vowel sounds. We've learned that all sounds in Chinese are actually distinct from any English sound. And that means that we have to train ourselves specifically to be able to produce these sounds. We can't just transplant our English sounds over to Chinese. So here's how I recommend you train yourself to produce authentic sounding Chinese sounds. First, find a Chinese pinyin table online with native speaker audio for each syllable. And you can do this by simply typing Chinese pinyin table in Google and going to the first result. Then for each day, pick a group of sounds that you're going to practice for that day. And the groupings being the groupings that I used in this video. First, review the mechanics required to produce those sounds. And then, for each sound, practice it as follows. Start with a simple syllable in the first tone. Play the native speaker recording and then mimic it as precisely as you can. Now move across the pinyin table, still using that same initial consonant but pairing it with a variety of finals. In each case, remember to play the native speaker recording first and then mimic it yourself. But for now, stick in the first tone so you can focus purely on pronunciation. And finally, the last step is to go back across that row of the pinyin table using the same consonant with a whole variety of finals and in all four tones. So depending on your patience, you can either practice each syllable in all four tones or you can cycle through the tones as you move across the pinyin chart. So this may seem a little tedious, but this is an incredibly efficient method of learning authentic Chinese pronunciation. And in no time at all, you'll be ready to move on to more exciting and interesting pronunciation drills.